episode 50 of Mile Higher Podcast. Here we are.
We're
50 deep.
50 deep. All right.
We
cool.
are.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. We've, it's just been a blur this past year, and God, episode 50 already.
I know.
I'm super pumped. But
Me too.
today we're diving into a topic that is very dear to my heart.
Very dear to my heart.
But it's probably one of the most famous stories that has to do with UFO and aliens, probably of all time. And it has to do with the scientist Bob Lazar, which if you've never heard his story before, prepare to have your mind blown today. And it may make you more of a believer in UFO and aliens, or it might turn you the other way. And you might think that Bob's story is just complete bullshit. You may think that it's just not a big deal whatsoever. And I mean, the reason why we even care about Bob is because Bob, when he came out years ago, he basically came out. Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like kind of different.
God. No, Bob came forward
with this info.
Basically saying that he had worked at Area 51 and worked with UFOs and all these other types of things. So that is what we were talking about today, which is very exciting. So
yeah, and the main reason we wanted to talk about it is there's a new movie that just came out that's been getting a lot of attention, and
a little documentary.
When did it come out?
It came out at the beginning or end of last year, I think.
Okay, so like a month ago. Okay.
Yeah, it's a documentary by filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. He covers a lot of these types of topics like Skinwalker Ranch, things which we still need to do that episode. But all these interesting types of things. So yeah, of course we saw this and inspired us to make a podcast about it because it's a very interesting story indeed. So
it is.
That is what we are diving into today. So let's get right into things. This week's Patreon question comes from Maddie, and she asks a very important question. Do you believe the oil industry purposely tries to prevent alternative energy sources from becoming widely used? This is like 5 different questions in one, but yes is my answer to that.
Yes.
I think it's pretty much proven.
Yeah.
And definitely something that I think requires its own episode at some point too, because we can go into all of the fuckery with the oil industry and just energy in general. Just alternative energy and stuff. But then she said, have you heard of Stanley Meyer's water fuel cell? And do you think he was purposely poisoned? So yeah, I've heard a little bit about this guy, but I mean, anybody that creates inventions that may threaten, especially the oil and gas industry, and may take us away from using fossil fuels is definitely going to be in jeopardy, I think. It's been shown over and over again with multiple people, not just Stanley, but Stanley's was like pretty obvious if you ask me, but we'll definitely look into that more later. But she said, also, do you think you guys think these big corporations and other industries that are actively destroying the environment have a plan for when the planet becomes uninhabited? Or do you think they're just focusing on short-term profits? That's
a really interesting thought.
So because at the end of the day, you're like, well, if they're smart enough to create this whole plan to, get really rich and control the energy, it's like, you got to think that they might have some type of plan once everything is, all the resources have been taken from the planet. What are they going to do? Maybe
they just move on to the next planet.
Maybe that's the goal. Maybe it's like maybe they're financing like secret projects that are doing space activities and, colonies in the moon and such, or on other planets.
Maybe. They're just not planning for it at all, and they're just selfish, and they're just, whatever, we're here now, so we're going to get the benefits now. I don't know if that much thought goes into what's going to happen to the planet. I mean, unless it really is something where it's like aliens are working with whoever these people are, or it's like something really
conspiracy
powerful.
Is deep.
Yeah, it depends on how deep the conspiracy actually is.
As far as the truth aspect to it, obviously there's endless possibilities as to what could happen for the future of our planet. I mean, especially if you believe different things. What? Does something look weird?
No.
Sorry, she just gave me this look like I had like a bird on my head or something. Like,
sorry, you just need a haircut.
Oh, my hair.
I was just noticing how long it is. I was like, damn.
It's like towering out of my headphones
today.
Yeah.
Fuck. All right. Anyway, I didn't expect you to notice me staring at your hair.
Okay. Well then. So today's first story is one that Kendall covered on her channel recently about Jamie Kloss, the girl that was kidnapped and her parents were murdered.
Yeah.
What a bizarre, just interesting case, right?
Yeah. Truly was. I mean, this was like so exciting.
Explain like a little bit like what happened, like just in a nutshell. Like if you didn't see her video on YouTube about it, Just explain to people that may not have heard about this story.
Okay, so I don't have notes with me today because my bunny chewed through my computer cord and I don't have a laptop currently.
Oh my God.
So I have to wait for one. I'm kind of using my phone, but that's just a pain in the ass. I'm just going to remember, just go off my memory. So I think it was like October
15th.
Okay, I was going to say 17th. Close enough. On October 15th, someone just randomly showed up at the Kloss family house
late at night
and killed both of the Kloss parents, James and Denise, right?
Yes.
And took Jamie. And this happened, back in October. And I just did a video on this last Tuesday, which I think was the 9th, right? Was it the 9th?
I think so. It was the previous week. It was not long. Maybe even
But I wasn't even going to post it until Thursday. That's the weird thing. But I got this random urge. I was like, I feel like this needs to go up ASAP. And it did. So then 2 days later, like 48 hours later, breaking news, Jamie Kloss has been found, which was so exciting because I have not yet done a Where Is video, which is my missing person series that I can follow up with a found video, which I'll be able to do. I'm actually just about to film that because the a lot of information just came out and I have all my notes ready. I finally have a clear picture of what actually happened because before, we didn't know what the hell happened. We were like, could it be human trafficking? Could she have killed her parents and left? Did a boyfriend take her? I mean, the theories were all over the place.
Because initially when law enforcement showed up on the scene, there was zero evidence. There was no evidence as to who had been there.
Yeah, it was a big question mark.
Or fingerprints, DNA. They weren't able to find anything. So,
and that's why I was waiting so long to cover it because I was following it from day one, but I didn't know if I was going to cover it because it was so bizarre and there was just nothing. And I was like, eventually something's going to come out, something. And I kept waiting and nothing. So eventually I just covered it as is. And then 2 days later, boom, Jamie Kloss has been found. And she found herself. She rescued herself. I'd like to point out, Jamie escaped from this creepy dude's house. What is his name even? I don't even want to give this guy. We're going to say his name one time. Jake Patterson.
Mm-hmm.
21 years old, total fucking weird looking weirdo. But the weird thing is normally when people get abducted, especially little girls, they're normally sexually assaulted.
There's a sexual motive behind it usually.
Yeah. And we're not seeing that in this case unless we're missing something, but there was no charges for that. They would have charged him though with something.
No, they didn't. I mean, they didn't have enough evidence to charge. Maybe they suspect maybe he did something, but there's no evidence.
Jamie
and he never said anything.
Jamie never said that. And Jamie did a full interview with them. It sounds like, I don't know for sure. I get nervous to say anything for sure because there's still so many holes in this case. But it sounds like he just took her after killing both of her parents. And he purposely stalked her out. He was watching her from her bus stop and stuff. He took her, had her for this, 2 months under the bed.
Days
and had
missing.
weights used to keep her underneath the bed. And then would play music and people would come over and his dad would come over.
That's horrible.
He had no idea.
Can you imagine being under the gap between the floor and the bed was 2.5 feet. So we're talking just I thought maybe he built some secret underground.
No, he kept her under his bed for
literally
2 months.
Just laying under the bed. I can't even imagine what that would be like. And just thinking,
imagine what the thoughts were. Just even the drive. I was thinking the drive to his house must have been so petrifying. After seeing both of your parents get shot in front of you.
Which that's what's crazy. And you can read I'll link the criminal complaint and it details, because this dude is proud of what he did. No remorse.
Clearly, by how he's talking.
He had this so well planned out to every little detail. And he's proud to be telling his, side of the story because he thinks he did this this crazy thing. He literally said in his interview with police that if he hadn't left, he would have gotten away with it, or it was something like that where he felt like he could have gotten away with this completely. He was like, the police hadn't found me in 2 weeks, then I had thought I got away with it.
Yeah.
Which is dude, that's not how it works, man.
No, people get found after years.
But this guy's an absolute piece of shit. Let's just say that. He killed
Clear
two
sociopath.
Innocent people in cold blood with a shotgun, point blank. Yeah. And you can imagine the rest. I mean,
in front of their daughter. And for no reason. Just for no reason.
To kidnap this girl and do what?
Keep her under his bed. Fucking bizarre.
Which is bizarre. It's so
honestly
bizarre.
Really weird. But the good thing here is that one, she was found, which is awesome. That's the best case scenario here. And second, for her to have not been, if that really is the case, she was not sexually abused in any way, then Thank God.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's amazing.
That'll just add to, I mean, she's already fucked up for life because she just saw her parents murdered in front of her.
And that's the other thing is right now we're debating about whether or not she should get the reward money. They're actually thinking about giving it to her because technically she saved herself and she's going to need it, dude.
Yeah.
It's $50,000. She's going to need it to pay for all the therapy she's going to need.
No one else deserves it but her.
Exactly. So hopefully they actually do that.
She was smart and this dude left for like 12 hours.
Yep.
And she climbed out of there.
No, he left for a short amount of time. You're
or that
confusing
was the previous time.
He left one time for 12 hours for Christmas.
To go see his grandparents or something.
And he didn't let her even get out for a bathroom break or anything. She was stuck under the bed for 12 hours. Man. That was the longest he ever left her without food. So he was feeding her and stuff. But then he went out. I don't know where he was going. It's in my notes, I think, but I don't remember where he was going when he left the house. He wasn't going that
far, yeah.
No, he was going somewhere quick, like maybe the store or something. And he
said he'd be away from the home for 5 to 6 hours.
Yeah. And I mean, she was so petrified. I think she could have escaped many times. Probably not many times. I don't know how often he left her, but she was so scared because he would like one time, I guess he hit her with like a thing that you would use to dust whatever the shades things, like hit her with a duster. But and that was like the worst he ever hurt her. But she was scared that he would hurt her bad. Like he said, if you do anything else or if you try to leave, like the punishment will be way worse.
Yeah.
So she was too scared.
Psychologically,
so finally, I think she started realizing like this guy's like whatever. I can get out of here. I can save myself. And he left, and she took her opportunity, ran out of the house, found someone who was walking their dog.
Did exactly what you should do.
And they recognized her as Jamie Kloss. They brought her to a neighbor's house and said, "Call 911. This is Jamie Kloss." And she's like standing there, and she looked all, dirty and skinny and clearly had been through it. And God, reunited with her family, though. It's amazing. It's really cool doing these cases all the time to see one where they get to go home, though. Like, it's just
absolutely,
like, especially
so rare.
Yeah.
So
it was
rare.
just like, if it really, as sad as this whole situation is, and her poor parents lost their life, and I can't imagine how horrible this was for her, but thank God, or thank whatever is out there. I always say thank God. I don't want anyone to think I'm like, yes, thank the universe,
everything,
that Jamie was able to come home. And I wish that was the case for more of the missing out there.
So the last thought I just had on this is why go through and do all of this? What makes a person, especially a 21-year-old, get to the point where you're going to execute this plan? This almost, to me, it seems like some type of sick fantasy he had or something.
Like mental fuckery.
Because this guy is like, he's like a in your mom's basement type of dude. Like he played a lot of computer games, I'm sure some violent ones. And, not that has anything to do with it, but I think he spent a lot of time
holed
to himself.
Up, secluded,
yes,
playing video. I'm not saying I am never going to be that person that's like video games cause violence, and plus not in this case. Like,
and we don't know. Like I just threw that out there.
I'm just randomly throwing that. I'm just saying though that it's not
theorizing.
The idea of the game though. It's more the seclusion and the doing it constantly where it becomes your reality, where it becomes dangerous and scary. When they don't have a lot of social activity and their only social activity is on a video game, that's concerning.
Yeah, no, well, when you're not surrounded by other human beings, anybody in isolation is going to start losing your shit. It's just the way that we're wired. So it's not, all that surprising that this guy just snapped or something. But my theory that I was going to bring up is I'm trying to possibly think like, why would this guy want to get, kidnap this young girl that he had never met before, didn't even know her name until he had captured her. Had watched her, I think, get off the school bus or something. Kind of like watched her from afar for a bit. Mm-hmm. And when I think of that, you think like either this guy's a sexual predator and he wants to, take advantage of this little girl. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe what happened is that he, maybe it's not that he likes little girls like in a weird like pedophile type of way, but instead, maybe he kidnapped her and was just going to like keep her captive with him so that he could like raise her to like an older age and like marry her or something weird like that. Sometimes people have done that in the past where, like kind of raise them, like kidnap them because they want them a part of their family, or like as maybe he wanted her as a girlfriend or something later on.
He must have thought that far. I mean, he must realize that she would grow up. Like, what was he planning to do with her for so long? Maybe he was. That's really
I think
bizarre.
he literally thought if he went through all the little things that he would not get caught. He literally thought he was going to get away with this, and just people would stop looking for Jamie, and it would just be, oh, Jamie's gone. You know,
so
she disappeared.
Odd. It really is truly odd.
Maybe he was going to try to brainwash her and then make her think something else. And like, who knows if he had her for years. I mean,
yeah.
And the sad reality is there's a lot of people probably out there that are in this type of situation that can't get free and have been brainwashed. And I mean, we've seen it before in other cases. We have. Mm-hmm. So to me, the fact that he didn't instantly, thank God, do any sort of sexual exploitation on this young girl, that it makes me think his other motive maybe was to keep her either as his own child in some weird way, or like let her grow up under his care and like somehow become like, almost enslaved to him in a more like, I don't know, relationship type of way. I mean, we can only speculate. I mean, I'm just speculating, but yeah, I really don't know. He could just be fucking nuts and I don't know, wanted to do some shit. He isn't
the most stable person.
No.
He's not, as the president says, a stable genius.
But I will note that his parents were like completely surprised by this, and they even wrote a letter, basically saying that, like, we had no idea. Like, he's always like nice guy. Like, it's always these people, man, these quiet people.
Yeah, like I can't believe he would have his dad to the house and she'd be fucking under the bed. That's so weird. The dad must feel so bad, like knowing that she was there.
It's so terrible. It's so really terrible what happened. So tragic. So terrible. But on some more interesting and lighter news, we're getting more mysterious signals from space.
Sweet. What do they want?
So astronomers from Canada have detected strange space signals coming from a distant galaxy, and these kinds of signals are known as fast radio bursts, which I think we even talked about last year. Another set of astronomers that detected fast radio bursts.
Yes, we did.
Basically, they're repeating radio waves that are being sent at like at the same in bursts, like literally boom, 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 almost to, if you think of communication in that way, I always think of like Morse code or something, like beep, 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 beep. Like maybe these fast radio bursts are in a,
sequence
coming in such a way. Yeah. A sequence of some sort that is a message that we're just like, oh, we're picking up something from some galaxy.
That's so interesting to think about.
Isn't it?
God, I wonder what they're trying to tell us.
So this set was picked up by the Chime telescope in British Columbia, and it emanated from the same source located about 1.5 billion light years away. So it actually is coming from the same source from the discovery, or from the previous year, the one I just talked about. It's the same fast radio burst again, or it's like coming at us again. So something sent them from this exact location in this galaxy, and yet again, like they resent it.
So they really want us to get this message.
Well, if it is a message of some sort, some astronomers say it could just be neutron stars colliding with each other, or just one neutron star rapidly spinning in a region with a high magnetic field. But again, these are just guesses,
Yeah, that's the thing. At the end of the day, like no one knows.
I mean, we can't see into this distant galaxy. We have no idea what's actually there or what's sending these signals. But of course, astronomers are always going to go try to find the most logical and, natural solution to this.
Yeah.
They're not going to come out and say like, we actually really think it could be some extraterrestrial intelligence messaging us.
But even if they did, I'm sure people would be like, whatever. I feel like it would barely get any coverage even then.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I was just reading. One of the Harvard astronomers believes that these fast radio bursts could actually be coming from energy beams used to propel spacecraft. So like it could be some like, that's really crazy to think about, but it could be that a spacecraft is emitting these fast radio bursts from it as it's like traveling through. Maybe it's like sending that like, hello, 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 we're out here.
Yeah. Like a little like.
Yeah. Like a probe almost.
Is anyone there type thing.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's interesting.
And that's a Harvard astronomer. So, and what's also interesting to note is that astronomers, we talked about that. You remember that Uma?
Yeah.
I believe that's how you pronounce it. But that space rock.
The cigar-shaped rock.
Was like our first interstellar visitor coming through and then came out. Well, it's interesting that more reports have come out after astronomers and people from Harvard and very top schools like that have looked at this even more, and they're starting to really think that it's possible that this was absolutely a spacecraft coming through, like flying through of some sort, or some type of intelligent something.
It makes sense.
Coming through to check out our solar system. Like, maybe they are probing. Here's one reality to this. Maybe they haven't found us yet, and they're just looking for us, and haven't been able to answer them.
You have to think, like, we always say them or they, but chances are if there are one type of aliens, there's several different types and species and from all over, and they may not all be in communication. It's not like they're all in on it and we're just the ones that are out. We're probably all kind of missing each other somewhere. So, I mean, it's possible that we still do have... Like, I mean, if you want to get into this conspiracy stuff, maybe we really do have a connection with an alien race.
Yeah, we'll talk about that today. But maybe
there's a whole separate one that still is looking for people. Like, it's really bizarre to think about, but...
It's really not that bizarre when you actually think about it from like a statistical standpoint, though. The number of lifelike planets that are in our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy alone, is so many. So why wouldn't, out of all these planets that can sustain life as we know it, why couldn't
come on, it's
others?
Pretty ignorant to think we're the only, and we're the smartest and the best as it gets. That's just plain wrong, man. Plain wrong.
We are definitely not even close to being the smartest beings in this corner of the galaxy. That's for sure.
This corner.
But today we are going to get into more about the UFO phenomenon, kind of where it started, and for a lot of those that a lot of you people out there that just don't know that much about it, or you've kind of heard a little bit here and there, but have never really understood kind of where the story started in a way. So. Well, hopefully we'll be able to explain this through Bob's testimony and his story about all of the interesting shit he worked on, as well as his time at Area 51. So before we get into that real quick, I want to thank our sponsor, ModCloth, for supporting the cast.
ModCloth is lit, people.
Yeah, it's a really cool website, actually.
They have so many cool little things. I love graphic tees, and they have so many graphic tees. They have everything. I just made an order. They have a shirt that says Conspiracy Club. And it's so
there was
cool.
like a galaxy dress and stuff, like some cool stuff on there. A solar
really
system
just
one or something.
Unique things. Like, I'm so sick of the same old at the same stores. I won't say the names, but ModCloth really does have such unique designs and just different, like, stuff that you're not going to see
styles,
everywhere.
A lot of like vintage stuff.
Yeah, vintage too.
If you like vintage clothing, there's a ton of that on there. So
and a really good size range too.
Mm-hmm. No, they have all sizes. I think I found like one or two things for men on there, but they also just have like tons of accessories and little lamps and lights and really cool little tabletop
really
decorating
cool lamp
stuff
that we found. I got too. I'm waiting for it to come in, but it's like an astronaut lamp. It lights up. It's so cool. I want to put it in the studio.
So for 15% off your purchase of $100 or more, all you got to do is go to modcloth.com and enter code MileHigher at checkout.
Today.
This offer is valid for one-time use only and expires on April 7th, 2019. Like we said, they actually have a team of mod stylists, which will hook you up with complimentary sizing and styling help as well, which is cool.
Oh, that's
really cool. They have all
cool.
that as well on top of just the immense selection. Yeah. So you can literally get everything your wardrobe needs. And again, for 50% off your purchase of $100 or more, go to modcloth.com and enter code MileHigher at checkout. Again, this offer is only valid for one-time use only and expires on April 7th, 2019. So it's not going to be around forever.
Yeah, hop on it.
All right. Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar.
51 and flying saucers, man.
All right. So can I say some stuff about Bob first?
Let's talk about Bob. So guys, this is Bob Lazar. I mean, what do you think?
I think that Bob Lazar is such a genuine person. Like, I like to think that I have a pretty good judge of character, I always say. I like to think I can like kind of sense people's intentions, and Bob Lazar is not one of those people who comes across as wanting to fool people or make money off his story, and he doesn't have an ego. He is probably the least Is egocentric a word? He has the least ego I've seen in the UFO field, like of everybody.
Yeah. I mean, he's
just such
matter
a
of fact about
mellow dude. Like he's so genuine and like this has truly been almost a curse in his life. You can tell this has been almost like it's a double-edged sword for him. He has seen some cool ass shit. He knows some cool things, but it has brought a lot of chaos into his life and a lot of stress, and you can tell it's
lots of unneeded stress.
Yeah.
Paranoia, like
for sure. And you can just tell by the way he talks that he's really not trying to make money off this. He just wants people to know the truth. So I really believe him.
So
hashtag I believe Bob Lazar.
So that's going to be the question, and some of you are like, I don't even know what are you even talking about? So by the end of this, we hope that you'll be able to either make a decision.
I wanted to tell them, the reason I was saying all that
before
is because,
we tell the story.
Yeah, I want them to have kind of an idea of who this guy is, like
that. We do think he's very credible, and
I really do.
And yeah, we err more on the side of believing it. But you guys obviously make your own decision based upon what his story is. So Bob Lazar is considered by most to be responsible for basically bringing the attention of Area 51 to the attention of the general public. Like before Bob, we didn't know about Area 51. No. Maybe a few people knew about it, but it wasn't until Bob Lazar in May 1989 appeared in a special interview with investigative reporter George Knapp, who's still around today and is actually in the film that we talked about. Great reporter. He's studied Bob's story for years and years and years as well. So he's a very reputable guy. But basically he gave an interview for him on the Las Vegas TV station KLAS under the pseudonym Dennis. They had him basically like be anonymous.
They had his face
like all blurred, or not blurred,
where, they had him in the car. You can see that like outer rim of his glasses, but you can't tell who he is. Honestly, though, I would not be comfortable with that as my disguise, because you could definitely see his hair and his glasses. If I were his boss, I would be like, "That's fucking Bob."
And I would have made him change my voice too. I'd be like,
"Yes,
change the voice," because his voice is so recognizable.
Recognizable. Sorry, that was a really good one, though.
Thank you. But basically, it's a big deal because he comes on TV in 1989 and is like, "Hello, everyone.
Yeah,
I'm Dennis."
Imagine back then what people thought of him. Oh my God.
And then he starts going into all this detail about how he worked at this top secret military facility called S4, which exists near Area 51, which is run by the Air Force. And there's a big Nevada test site out there. They used to test all the nukes out there.
And now
they test
we have
all the secret
proof
military.
that these both exist, but back then, those were coming out. It sounded like he was pulling this out of his ass.
Right, exactly.
But now we know he's telling the truth, and that gives him so much credibility. There are plenty of instances of things that he said that he had seen or that exist, and they weren't proven at the time, but then later on they were proven, which gives him so much credibility.
Absolutely. And that's not even the half of the credibility there. So basically, Bob is talking about this facility he worked at called S4, which is adjacent to Papoose Lake, which is located south of the main Area 51 facility at Groom Lake. For those that don't know, or those of you in other parts of the world, Area 51 is in Nevada. And in Nevada, there's Las Vegas, which everybody I'm sure has heard of. And Area 51 is about 83 miles northwest, like into the desert from Las Vegas.
In the middle of
way out there in the middle of nowhere. And so this facility that Bob said he worked at, S4, is located just several miles away. And it's like hidden from like view. Like it's built into the side of like the mountain, I think, or side of the ground there. And the doors are all like camouflaged to look like sand and everything. So it's definitely hidden, but there's a bunch of hangars, he said there. And it was in these hangars at S4 that Bob describes working on advanced propulsion systems for 9 flying saucers of extraterrestrial origin in possession of the U.S. military. So obviously this is like, what? Like, flying saucer? Where have we heard this before? And really, like before this, I think, there might have been a few things before it that weren't as big as like Roswell is what I'm trying to get at. Roswell was like 1940s, the first time that really anybody, really heard UFO or flying saucer. So this is now coming back into the general public's knowledge of like, holy shit, this guy says he worked on these flying saucers or these alien spacecraft at this secret Air Force installation. Now, Bob said that the propulsion system is a gravity propulsion system and the power source is an antimatter reactor. And when he was questioned by George Knapp on this, he basically said that, George Knapp, of course, asked him like, well, do you think this technology could exist? Like, is it possible that this is man-made or maybe somebody else out there in the world can make this type of technology? And this is when Bob said that this technology absolutely doesn't exist at all. There's no way that humans could ever have built this propulsion system on this spacecraft.
And he said that like currently scientists were trying to figure out how to do it, like wasting their time basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's exactly. One of the reasons he said he wanted to come forward was that he felt guilty about all the scientists and stuff working to come up with technology that already exists and is already in the hands of the military, and they're just basically wasting their time.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he's kind of like, I don't know, changed his view as to like why he, originally came out. And I mean, not changed it, but it's kind of supplemented by feeling like his life is in danger. But like you just said, he felt like the fact that the government had extraterrestrial technology that could literally revolutionize the world, this anti-gravity
was such a disservice to people.
Yeah, was such a disservice. So that's why he felt like the information should be made public. So after he does this initial interview, he goes on and he comes actually out as Bob Lazar and does a couple other interviews and continues talking into more detail about his time at Area 51.
Because I think he felt safe after that. He was like, okay, nothing happened to me. Because he knows that, like, they know who he is.
Well, stuff did happen to him, yeah.
Yeah, but, like, he made it through. He didn't die.
No, he didn't die. Well, that's the thing is he felt like because he came out, this video was insurance, basically.
Yeah, insurance. It's like,
people would know if he got
killed,
just disappeared.
That's who it was. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That
Same reason that I'm not afraid of them coming after me. You guys would know exactly why.
It's true. It's very true.
And because I don't really matter that much. But anyway.
But basically, after he did these interviews, this is kind of when Area 51 like blew up and then became super popular and really turned it into like the UFO alien mecca of the United States.
Yeah.
Like everybody has, like, tons of people have tried to go to Area 51, and a lot of people have reported seeing strange UFOs, different types of craft and such in that area of the desert. So it's definitely a place known for UFOs and things like that.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and that's where this thing gets really interesting, is the fact that he specifically states that this technology is extraterrestrial or could be extraterrestrial, because there's no way we could have made it. They don't even understand it.
Yeah.
So I want to go into more detail about what he saw, but I think it's important to kind of understand Bob as a person too, because that's like the whole thing, right? Is anybody can come forward and say, I saw this, because right, there's a ton of people that are whistleblowers and claim to be, I used to work for this or that, and either don't have a lot of proof or we have to just take their word for it. And anybody can like make up an elaborate story about UFOs and aliens. I mean, it's not hard. But Bob is very interesting because, like Kendall said at the beginning, he seems like a very credible dude that's very intelligent and really has no motive to like try to like make himself famous from this at all. Like,
definitely not for the fame. I mean, the dude has no interest in fame. He is so mellow.
Oh yeah. So, and he's just a regular guy. So.
He was even very reluctant to do this new recent movie. They like got pretty lucky to even get him to do it.
Yeah. No, he doesn't like to make.
He's not seeking out.
He's not like going on UFO tours and doing all these speaking events and stuff. He's kept to himself after he came out. But Bob was born on January 26, 1959 in Coral Gables, Florida. And as a teen, he built jet engines and attached them to his bicycle. So as a teen, he's clearly like a genius. I mean,
and the dude still has it. He rides around.
Yeah, he does.
He still has it. He like whipped it out and was like riding his bike around with the little jets on them.
So a lot of people have tried to discredit Bob by saying that he's not a scientist, yet he's making jet engines.
But this is interesting. The whole discrediting thing.
So, yeah.
So let's explain that.
Okay. So as he got older, he continued to make bigger and bigger jet engines, and he eventually attached them to his cars. He had like a dragster that had a jet engine on it. And one time he built a particle accelerator in his bedroom. Come on. Can you build a particle accelerator? Yeah, let's just smash some atoms together in our master bedroom. That'd be fun. But anyway, he built a particle accelerator in his bedroom so he could produce chemicals for his homemade hydrogen-powered Corvette. So one of the interesting things is that his education is a bit foggy because...
Yeah, it's weird as fuck.
You know, when we started looking into Bob's claims and his story when he came out and started talking about his experience, people were like, well, what kind of education this guy does? Let's look into him a little bit. And Bob claims to hold degrees from MIT, or the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, as well as the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, which both schools very, very prestigious, especially MIT.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah, you're next level smart for sure if you're getting degrees in science there, especially. But what's very interesting about this whole thing, and this is probably one of the most iffy parts of Bob and his story, is his education. And
for sure,
a lot of people think he's flat out lying because when reporters like George Knapp looked into his background, they could not find any records of Bob ever attending either of those colleges. So obviously many people think he lied about that. So they continued looking into his background, and he was never a member of any professional bodies, and he claims to have like physics degree and things like that. So a lot of people that are getting their doctorate at a college have a thesis. They have, they have some type of paper trail to prove that you went there. And this is just really weird. Yeah. He's not in any of the yearbooks. The school have been asked, and they're like, we have no record of him. And the school,
but then they did have like some stuff with his name on it. Remember?
Not from school, no.
Not from the school? I thought they did. And they were like, no, we still don't know. I thought maybe.
No, I don't think anybody's ever found any like actual ties to either of the schools. So it's interesting. But then Bob, on the other hand, is like, clearly they went and cleared it out.
Yeah, he was like, why would they hire me without an education?
Yeah, he's like, you think this top secret facility is just going to hire me out of high school? Like, obviously right. I have, degrees from these places.
And he gets really, really defensive.
He gets very defensive about it, a little weird about it. And I mean, I don't think that necessarily proves deceit or that he's lying, but it is interesting because it's like, if you actually went there,
annoyed by it.
Where's your diplomas? Like, did you get like, you would have had those from when you graduated.
He was getting pretty ticked off in the video for them even asking about it.
So that is definitely suspect. Definitely suspect, I would say.
But like at the same time, I do know that they will, like, these government agencies do know how to pull fuckery and pull strings and get people removed from things. And I don't think that's proof that he didn't go to school. I mean, he's clearly a genius.
Well, and the thing about it is there's like, some people agree with that statement. Some others agree with what MIT said. And they said there's no way even the government could expunge someone from their records, which I'm like,
yeah, even
but at the end of the day, I'm like,
that's weird.
Yeah, they could.
You think they could?
They'll hack you. They just hack you. They got the NSA, dude. They would hack your shit and delete it. But then at the same time, it's like I feel like if you were going to do that, MIT would have to know something about that. And maybe they're just not saying anything because they've been told not to say anything. That's another possibility.
That is another possibility.
So basically the way the story goes is that Bob Lazar, when he was talking to George Knapp, the reporter, said he had been recruited to work at this S4 facility for just a few weeks in 1988 and 1989. And after he worked there, he said he claimed to work at the Mason Physics Lab, a part of the Los Alamos National Laboratories. So this is also interesting because the Los Alamos National Laboratories is one of those places where a lot of people who have used to work there have claimed a lot of very interesting things, especially in the UFO alien topic, which I won't go into too much detail about that right now. But Bob claimed to work for them, and this is a like very, I think you have to have a clearance to work there and stuff. So obviously people started, wanting to know if he actually worked there, and they actually had the FBI look into it, and I don't think they ever found any official things that listed him there. But what's interesting is that after tons of digging, the reporter George Knapp actually said they found his name in an old telephone directory of Los Alamos scientists.
That's what it was. Okay.
The only record, of him working there possibly. But Bob's like, yeah, I absolutely worked there. So it's another example where his like work history is like being completely hidden, it seems like.
It really doesn't seem like he's making that up though too, because like clearly he went to school and stuff. But it's just so bizarre. Like, wouldn't you be able to produce something? something, a bill, a tuition bill,
yeah,
a book.
It's like nothing.
Literally,
you have nothing to even show you. Because my thought too is like maybe Bob went there to those schools and just never graduated. Like maybe never got a degree.
Yeah, something like
that. But
that.
it's like you'd go to both of those schools and not get a degree. Like what are the chances of that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's really odd. But I just don't see how he would have been hired without that. And he clearly did. I mean, how else would he have known about all this stuff that turned out to be true later on? Yeah. And there's more to come.
There's way more. Yeah, way more juicy details.
Juicy tidbits.
But the fact that they like couldn't find any actual proof from Los Alamos labs that he had worked there is interesting. But George Knapp actually interviewed some employees that had worked there, and they've said that they remember working with him actually.
Yes.
So that's interesting. They had been 4 of them confirmed they had been working on classified projects there. So after denying Bob's employment there since 1989, Los Alamos in April 1994 finally changed its story and said that Bob had been employed there. So later on, he got vindication, which is just another, just helps his credibility more that, they tried to cover up him working at Los Alamos, and now we find out that they are like, oh yeah, he did work here. But what's interesting is that when George Knapp was talking to former employees of people that had reportedly worked at the S4 or Area 51 base, basically were able to corroborate Bob Lazar's description of details as to how you get to the base, because there's a specific way you got to get to Area 51, which, by the way, we have a whole episode on Area 51 I remember of, and all these secret military bases. We did it a while back.
Did we?
Yeah, we did do an episode on this.
Okay.
But
oh, yeah, we did.
We went in depth about Area 51. But if you haven't watched that, in order to get to Area 51, you go to the Las Vegas airport, the McCarran airport, but you have to take these special planes that are like unmarked and usually hidden behind like a fence and stuff. And you basically fly from Las Vegas and then you fly to Area 51 and you take a bus. So when talking to the other employees of Area 51, they said that Bob knew exactly how to get there, how you went in, what the process to check in was, as well as how to get your meals there. He knew exactly what the dining room looked like.
Yep.
And it's like, come on, how did he know that? If nobody was giving him knowledge, then how would he know that unless he had been there?
And why make it up?
And why? What's the point of making it up?
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. And there's a reported picture of his ID badge from Area 51 as well. So another thing that helps out Bob in his credibility with, working at S4 and Area 51 is that he had at one point mentioned that a man by the name of Mike Thigpen had visited his house and interviewed him in connection with his S4 employment. So like a recruiter came and talked to him about this. Two witnesses that happened to be at Bob's house confirmed that Mike Thigpen had visited. And basically it's, how did he know? How was he able to name Mike Thigpen if he had never been there? And Mike Thigpen has been confirmed by the Department of Energy as working for that site or Area 51 in that regard of like finding people. And
they like contacted him, right?
Yeah,
and
they did. And they talked to him and said that, absolutely. He knew. So it's like that right there just shows you like there's another, just another nail in the coffin for the believability of this story. Like it's just getting crazier. So while working at the base in Area 51, Bob Lazar claimed that he was working for the Navy, and there's actually a picture of his W-2 form that looks very credible. Obviously we don't know 100% for sure, but there's an actual form, W-2 form. We all get them, and it says United States Naval Intelligence or something like that.
Yeah, naval intelligence.
So how would you get that unless he... And that's the thing is like, how would Bob have just like manufactured this? You'd have to be... Why? Like, why try to just create all this stuff, create a fake W-2 if people aren't going to believe you? One of the things I did want to mention, though, is that Bob... So after this happened in 1990, Bob got involved. He was like helping a brothel set up
this is
like a database weird. And like get it going kind of. And
that's not good, Bob. That's a bad boy, Bob.
He ended up getting arrested and charged with like felony pandering.
You can't fucking do that, man.
So a lot of people, like, as soon as that happened,
it fucked him over a lot.
Yeah, because
people can bring that shit up. That was dumb.
People are like, oh, you're not credible.
Oh my god, yeah, in a brothel, like that's not.
Which I thought brothels were legal in Vegas or in Nevada. Maybe it didn't have the right permits or licenses.
They're legal in Nevada.
Yeah. Brothel, you can go to a brothel.
Oh, right. I remember watching something on like Paradise Ranch or something. They call it.
Yeah. The Bunny Ranch or whatever.
Something
There's
like
a couple of them.
Yeah, I remember watching something about that a long time ago. I don't know if it's still legal.
Yeah, but it's interesting in this story because he worked for all this and then he gets tied up in this little thing here and he doesn't really talk about it at all. So, or I haven't heard him talk about it at all, period. But he went to court and everything and was facing jail time. And the judge ended up giving him, I keep thinking prohibition. That's not it. No. Probation. Jesus. Probation, not prohibition. I think he got probation or something in community service. But it did really hurt his credibility after that.
Yeah.
So, but what on the flip side, what a lot of people say is like, that was the time that Bob, if he was faking this and lying to his family, like his wife, his friends, everybody has heard the same story that we're telling you about him. And it really hasn't changed at all. So if he was lying when he got busted for that, you would think maybe that's a great time to be like, hey, I lied about this. My whole background's a lie. I never worked there. I never worked at Area 51.
I'm just full of shit.
I'm just full of shit. And then kind of like reset your life.
Yeah. But no, he kept going.
But he did not do that. And so this leads us to some of the very deep, interesting, juicy details of Area 51 and S4. But before that, I want to thank our next sponsor, Robinhood. I love Robinhood. It's a sweet investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission free, which is really nice. They strive to make financial services work for everyone, not just the wealthy. They basically give you a non-intimidating way to look at stocks and learn about investing and start making investments with a lot of confidence because of all of the reviews and all of the different ways you can sort through various stocks and learn about them. It's a really great app to start investing on. What's also great is a lot of other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade, but Robinhood doesn't charge any commission fees for trading stocks. So you get to keep all your profits, which is super great. Obviously, the design of the app's really easy to understand. And yeah, I mean, it kind of walks you through things a little bit, helps you understand what you're investing in. So it's a great way to learn and, get a stock and start growing, your investment portfolio. But Robinhood is giving listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help build your portfolio. All you got to do is sign up at milehigher.robinhood.com. That's milehigher.robinhood.com. Take advantage of that free stock. It's not bad. You get a free stock.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
It's pretty cool. All right, back to Bob.
Back to Bob.
All right, so Bob, and this is interesting here because if you talk to if you talk to anybody that's into UFOs at all or knows a little bit about them, most should know about Bob Lazar and his story. So when we start talking about what he actually did while he was employed there, just keep this in mind that everything that they do there is completely cloaked in just like secrecy, and they compartmentalize everything. So that's like the main thing that people will say is, how do you keep something like this secret? How can there be any secrecy with leakers and hackers and everything? Like, it's just not possible, but it is, especially in the at that time in history. But basically the way that Bob described is that while he was working there, and this is consistent with any other type of whistleblower or leaker, somebody that has previously worked for a top secret agency and can talk about declassified stuff, they'll tell you that everything is on a need to know basis. You only know what what is absolutely necessary to complete your job.
Your specific job, right? So they're not. It's not like because you work there, you have the ins on everything. No, that's why a lot of people also question Bob because they'll like ask him something and he won't know the answer. But it's like that wasn't part of his job. He was solely there to back engineer the craft.
Right.
He wasn't there to know, like he doesn't know if there was an alien race or like what, if we have a relationship with them or like he doesn't know anything
his job was to be a physicist, a scientist, to reverse engineer this anti-gravity propulsion system that powered these ET spacecrafts. So that's what he was doing there. Now this is interesting. I just wanted to bring up that a while back, I think last year or the year before, Joe Rogan actually did an episode with Tom DeLonge, which we'll have to get into more on Tom DeLonge on another episode. But basically, Tom DeLonge is huge into UFOs. He's got a company.
Have we not done an episode on him?
No, we haven't talked about him.
Oh my God, we need to do a whole episode on like To the Stars.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept, very interesting thing. He's kind of a media company / research think tank in a way called To the Stars. But anyway, Tom was on Joe Rogan's podcast and they got started talking about Bob Lazar. And what was interesting to me is, I didn't even know this, but Tom said that he is going to publish Bob Lazar's autobiography, actually. So it's interesting that they're working together. Yeah, I don't know. He didn't say. But basically, he was talking about, from Bob's book, he said, but I think he's talked about this before as well. But before he was brought into this job at S4 as a physicist, during the interviews, they said they had an idea for him. And basically, they put him in a place with a bunch of discs, with a bunch of other scientists who were working on the back engineering team on the different craft. And per his story, the scientists before had tried to cut into one of the propulsion devices and it exploded and killed a bunch of scientists. Don't know if this is true, but this is just per his story. So he was like kind of getting in the interview process and they were basically telling him like, we're in a bad place. We just had this happen. We tried to cut into this anti-gravity propulsion system and it blew up on us.
Holy shit. So like, my question is, if people died from that, how wouldn't we know like why?
Well, they did, because we did that. Basically what happened was the Nevada nuclear test site released a statement saying that they were just doing a small nuke test, that there was an actual like recorded explosion. But obviously if scientists died, that was never brought to the public's attention.
Wow.
So Bob was kind of brought in kind of like on a whim almost. Like they obviously already knew about him, but they didn't really take the time to carefully comb his background because they needed people right away that could continue working on this project because a bunch of people had just died apparently.
Oh God, imagine getting the call for that job. Be like, well, the whole team that just was here before you just died, so we'd like you to take over for them.
Yeah, like welcome to the team. Yeah, that would be crazy. So Bob starts like working for them, and they haven't even finished the background checks on him because it takes like 6 months to a year to just do all the top security clearance checks on him. And from what Bob says he was given, after he once was finally cleared, he was given a clearance known as Majestic clearance.
Oh wow, he was giving Majestic
clearance, which is supposedly like big. One of the highest clearance levels possible. Which, for those that don't know, it's what it's been said to me is that the Majestic clearance is some 30 some odd levels higher than the highest citizen or the highest clearance a citizen can obtain. So if I want to go work for the Air Force or go work for, I have to get a top or like a government contractor like Raytheon or something, I have to get a top secret clearance. So there's obviously different levels of clearance a citizen can get. And Bob had like 33 levels above that, which is way above the president of the United States, by the way.
Damn.
President of the United States doesn't even have that
clearance. Such a genius that they're just willing to give him that.
It's very interesting. And something that skeptics point to is like, why would they bring him into all this and give him this top secret clearance and tell him all this shit if,
he could possibly go tell people.
Yeah, exactly. If they had an idea already that he was the type of person that would run and tell, So it's interesting. But apparently while they were doing Bob's background check, they asked him to stop working for a bit because they were worried about his unstable home life. Because supposedly his wife was having an affair or something like that. There was kind of turmoil at home because Bob was literally gone like all the time, random hours of the night. They would just call you in, like you would come into work at weird times.
And you can't really tell anyone what you're doing. That's always makes you look like a sketch ball.
They can't tell you. They couldn't even tell their wife where they were going, who they're working for, what they're doing.
But I would not be married to someone like that because I could not handle.
All right, Kendall, I'd be like, back when I'm back.
Okay.
Can't tell you where I'm going. I
just could not deal with that. And like, there's a lot of people that are like married to Secret Service agents or FBI agents, and they like can't even know what their spouse is doing. That I always wonder though if they just tell them. You know, like I feel like if it was us, like you would tell me.
No, I wouldn't.
Come on.
If I knew that something bad could happen to me or that
could put me in danger.
Yeah, it could put you in danger. I mean, who knows? Like it's endless of what could happen. But
yeah, that's true.
And obviously, this type of situation is not good for someone like Bob because he's kind of a paranoid, anxious guy. Like he just kind of seems kind of on edge, which I mean, rightfully so. But I think that's just kind of his personality too. Like he's definitely more of a introvert, I would say. Right? Would you say Bob Lazar is like more introverted?
Definitely. He doesn't put. That's what I was trying to say earlier. He doesn't put it across that like loves attention, loves the spotlight type of vibe. He's like so behind the scenes type of dude. He's like very introverted. So yeah, I think it was like a very strange thing for him to do, to actually come forward. I think it took a lot because most introverted people would not do that.
No. And that's the thing is like, there would have to be a really good reason for somebody like that to have to come forward and say all this stuff.
Yeah.
But another thing that helps Bob's credibility is that when he wasn't working, Bob would actually go out near the base on public lands and watch the UFO tests or the tests of the
and take people
ET spacecraft that were conducted every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. in this certain location.
He'd be like, come with me, I'll fucking show you guys. And he'd take people there.
Right. And he would take like his friends and I think he took his wife there and stuff to be like, hey, like, I'm not lying. Like this is, look, how would I know that they're doing these tests at this time if I wasn't actually doing these things?
Right.
So it was kind of at this point that he, you know, kind of told people, and actually one of the nights he was out there with some friends, I think, and Area 51 is patrolled like by a private security force. It's really interesting. A private security force that doesn't even like work for the military, but they patrol the perimeter of the base and around it, just in the neighboring desert. Like there's tons of videos on YouTube. All you gotta do is type in Area 51, and somebody has tried to go there and has gotten stopped by the camo dudes that are basically driving these pickup trucks just through the desert all night and have been for years, patrolling the mountains looking for people that, you know, shouldn't be there. And they caught Bob. They caught him and his friends. And
hanging out.
That night, I think they kind of scared the shit out of him a bit.
Yeah.
And kind of gave him a wake-up call, like, what are you doing? Who are you? Kind of spooked him, basically. And I think it was the combination of this and just kind of knowing that kind of shit was unraveling a little bit is why he took the whole thing public and went on TV and did interviews with George Knapp. And what he also said is like after this event or sometime during it, he actually got shot at by some unknown individual or something while getting on the freeway at some point.
Dude, holy
So like he totally had like spooks or government spooks after him.
So that's
trying to scare him. And that's why
public,
he was he got shot. He was like, I'm getting scared that they're gonna and then come
once
take
he
me
did,
out.
he's like, fuck, yeah, wow.
Well, he realized like, fuck, like the only way I can really keep myself safe is coming forward.
It's people.
Which makes sense. And I mean, that makes sense for all types of people that whistleblow, leak, or leak different things.
Yeah, people ask about Dr. Greer.
Right.
Why is Dr. Greer so alive? He has so much, he's leaked so many things. He says so many things. Well, Dr. Greer has a huge following that would know if something happened to him and it was at all weird, they would know. So like those numbers help.
Yeah, it does. It helps to have eyes on you.
Layer of protection.
It really is. It's insurance. It's definitely,
It's just making sure that if something happens to you, people will like do something. They'll investigate. They'll look into it. And chances are no one will even take the chance to do anything to you because they could be caught or it could be exposed, you know? There's so much risk that they would take when taking someone out, you know? And it's not always worth the risk if you have so many eyes on you.
And especially like these reports of, you know, once you are caught kind of starting to leak information, or like he was starting to tell his friends and people about these UFOs and such, like it is pretty much proven fact that government spooks, whatever you want to call them, may try to scare you and try to force you back into silence, essentially. And I've known several that have had similar experiences where their house is just randomly ransacked, or just weird things start happening out of the blue.
Yeah.
Some people just get sick randomly, or, you know, like we talked about with the water guy, Stanley, like, you know,
or
they could potentially like try to cause an accident or something to make it look like a accidental death or something.
Who got hit by a car? He like got hit by a car. Wasn't it
What? Who?
He got like someone slammed into him, yeah. Or his car was hit by another car or something.
Are you talking about Emery?
Yes.
Yeah.
Emery
That's
Smith.
what I'm talking about too, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just wasn't naming him, but
oh, sorry.
It's fine. Yeah, I mean, like Emery Smith, he's same type of situation.
Yeah.
And he actually worked at Los Alamos too, I believe. So it's interesting that, you know, if you come forward with this information that's pretty common for government spooks or whatever, come after you and try to scare you into silence.
Spooks.
Yeah. Men in Black, whatever you want to call it. I mean, whatever you want to call it. I mean, maybe they're not government associated at all. Maybe they're associated with some, I don't know, other group. I don't know. But maybe. So while Bob was working at S4, his job was very specific in that he was to basically understand this highly advanced extraterrestrial propulsion system, which was being stored in one of 9 camouflage hangars at the S4 facility. Bob says that when he first laid eyes on the craft, which was this classic saucer-shaped craft, literally like the ones that you see on all the t-shirts and everything, almost like, it's like a disc kind of like bell disc. I don't know. It reminds me of like,
describe that shape?
It reminds me of like symbols
like a dreidel.
put together.
It's like a dreidel.
Yeah, or a top or something almost.
Yeah,
like,
a top.
Yeah.
Like a dreidel.
A dreidel. But when Bob first took a look at this flying saucer, he dubbed it the sport model. And when he first saw it, he said he thought it was man-made. Because like going into this, it wasn't like Bob was like into UFOs and into flight. He didn't know or care.
Yeah,
or like,
he's just into science.
He was just like, oh, this is cool. This is like crazy technology. So according to Bob, the dimensions of this sport model were 16 feet tall and 52 feet 9 inches in diameter. So pretty big. It's a pretty big disc. The exterior skin of the disc is metal and coloring similar to unpolished stainless steel. So like a shiny metal disc. And the craft sits on its belly when it's not energized. The entry hatch is located on the upper half of the disc, with just the bottom portion of the door wrapping around the center lip of the disc. So the disc is actually, according to Bob, like another thing that's interesting is he literally gave us diagrams of this thing.
Yeah.
Like drawn out in detail exactly where everything was. He said that there was 3 levels to the disc. The lower levels where the 3 gravity amplifiers and their waveguides are located, which was where they're actually, which was the actual propulsion system of the craft. And then he said that the reactor is located directly above the 3 gravity amplifiers on the center level, and then, which is in fact centered between them. The reactor is a closed system which uses element 115 as its
so
fuel.
Interesting. We should do a whole episode on element 115, but I don't know if there's enough.
There's
for
not
us
enough
to talk about
because I've got all of it right here. So
I've got all of it right
don't
here.
you worry. There's no time for that.
I wish there was enough to talk about a whole episode, but sadly we don't have that much information on it.
But it's very interesting that somebody as smart as Bob is literally was like, yeah, it's power. This anti-gravity reactor is powered by this element 115. It's basically the source of the gravity A wave, which is amplified for space-time distortion and travel. So Bob literally was able to diagram out the craft. He knew exactly how all the components worked. And yeah, he just couldn't understand like how it was engineered. He knew kind of how it worked and stuff, but he couldn't like tell you how exactly it was creating this anti-gravity waves or creating gravity waves. Because basically what it would do is the craft would completely change a certain point in space and completely warp space-time to create like almost like a hole in it so that it can move to that location in space-time. It's like
creating a wormhole kind of.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, it's able to, it completely defies all, any gravity on this planet whatsoever. It doesn't need it at all. It completely creates its own field essentially. But according to documents that Bob Lazar read while he was at S4, The flying saucer discs fly by amplifying gravitational waves, which gravity is actually two waves identified as gravity A and gravity B. Gravity A is at the atomic level. That is the wave that does not extend beyond the molecular bond except in element 115. And this slight extension allows the wave to be accessed and amplified. Gravity A is currently called the strong nuclear force. The propulsion system is an antimatter reactor. And in the disc Bob crawled inside, this reactor was a sphere about the size of a medicine ball. And the top half of it was visible in the middle of the floor. So the fuel for this reactor is the element 115, or ununpentium. UNUN pentium. On a periodic table, ununpentium is a super heavy metal, would be listed as UUP. It has a melting point of 1,740 degrees Celsius. When it is bombarded with protons, it becomes element 116, an element that gives off antimatter.
Wow.
So that's essentially what they do, is they like bombard it with protons
to turn it into
in order to create an antimatter reactor. Yeah.
That's so fascinating. And it's like multiple people have talked about this. This is another thing that Tom backs up like completely.
Yeah. He completely believes this part of the story as well.
Dr. Greer talks about this as
well.
well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So this is like...
Well, this is very real because...
It all lines up.
It really does. Because when Bob first came forward with his story, element 115 hadn't even been created in a lab yet. It didn't even exist. Because essentially what Bob is saying is that this element 115 can't be created naturally on our planet. So this is some type of extraterrestrial, some type of metal or, element from some other place in space. Like there's no way it occurs naturally here. So it wasn't until 2003 that Russian scientists synthesized the element for the first time. Element 115 is an incredibly radioactive substance and one of the heaviest elements ever discovered. To date, only 4 Moscovian, which is the name they've given it now on the periodic table, it's since been added to the periodic table. But really? Bob knew about this way before, 20 plus years earlier. And it's now they're like, oh shit, we can synthesize this in a lab, but they can't make ounces of it. That's the thing. Synthesizing it in a lab is like teeny tiny bit of this element 115. But these spacecrafts are using like a much bigger piece of it. So where is that coming from? Where could it be from?
A different planet where it's like a resource that's readily available.
Wherever the pilots of this craft came from, likely,
Yeah.
So that's what's so interesting about it. But according to Bob, the extraterrestrial craft he worked on used a stable version of element 115 to warp gravity around the craft and propel it forward. So they haven't even been able to create a stable version of it. So they can't even do anything with it. So if this is indeed true, then they had a decent amount of element 115, at least enough that was needed in order to propel these craft. It's very interesting. And how would he have known that even existed if,
come on,
if he hadn't worked there? And
that's a pretty fucking good guess.
So yeah, people fight him on it and be like, oh yeah, he made it up or whatever. But that's pretty good evidence for, his story being credible as far as, what he worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So here's some more interesting things about this craft that Bob worked on. He said the center level of the flying saucer also housed the control consoles and seats, both of which were too small and too low to the floor to be functional for adult human beings.
Miniature aliens.
So it was like kids' chairs, because they actually nicknamed whoever the pilots of the craft were the kids.
That is so fucking weird. The kids.
Imagine if you're Bob and you go into you're at work today, you had your oatmeal for breakfast, you got your Mickey D's, you're on your way to the Area 51, and today they're like, all right, you're going to come into this hangar with us and you're going to see some shit. He goes in there and crawls inside this disc, and there's these little seats. What are you thinking in your head when you see little seats inside of this highly advanced flying saucer?
And like we said, they don't tell you where that came from, who was in it.
No. They're like, don't ask questions about it either.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're just like looking at the propulsion. I'd be looking at the chairs.
Yeah,
I'd be like,
holy shit.
Wait a minute.
Aliens sat in this.
Who the hell's sitting in those chairs?
Yeah, because, that's weird.
This is crazy. Also really interesting. But the walls of the center level are divided into archways at one point in time when the disc was energized, which that was the thing, is Bob not only got to like take it apart, but he also got to see it in action and actually saw the thing when it was running.
That's so cool.
He said when the disc was energized, one of the archways became transparent and you could see the area outside of it just as if the archway was a window.
Wow.
And what's really interesting about Bob's description of this flying saucer is it literally is exactly the description of people that have been claimed to be abducted by UFOs or have had sightings.
Oh, that's so weird.
Like specifically, I'm referring to Betsy and Barney Hill,
right?
One of the most famous UFO sightings. Their description of what the craft was that abducted them is very similar to this. Not only did the archway look like a window, but something incredible happened when the craft was being demonstrated, and this technology could not be produced by any humans. Basically, when the craft was on, a form of writing, which was unlike any alphabetic, scientific, or mathematical symbols Bob had ever seen, began to appear on one side of the transparent archway. Lazar was never given access to the upper level of the disc either. This is very interesting because some reports about the craft that crashed at Roswell had some type of weird writing, and there's actually pictures of the supposed writing that was found on the side of it. And it makes you wonder, it's like, could these be the same craft that they're using? Because the whole thing is like, where's this craft from? If it wasn't made by humans, then where is it from? Could it have been from Roswell? I had always assumed that it was Roswell that the craft came from, but there's another version of how the craft was obtained, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, but it's very interesting that there was those similarities there between the stories. But anyway, Bob was unable to provide any specifics as to what the porthole-like areas at the top of the disc actually were for. So he didn't know. Like, there's the top areas with like the little, like a lot of the UFO pictures, you can see like little portholes, windows almost.
Right.
And he never got up into the third level, so he had no idea what was even up there. Maybe, what if there's just like a bunch of like little seats, little chairs in there? So a bunch of like little aliens could all sit together. The kids could all sit together in a circle or something.
That's like creeps
flying around.
They called them the kids.
I know, right?
It's just so weird.
But the more that he worked on this flying saucer, the more he came to the conclusion that the craft must have been alien in origin. Like, there's just no way. And he's very adamant about this fact when talking about it in this documentary. He's like, the filmmaker asked him, he's like, so there's no way, Bob, that anybody could have made this in the world. He was like, literally, there's no way anybody could have made this thing. This thing was otherworldly because the technology was that crazy, and because of this element 115 as well.
Yeah.
It's like, there's no way anybody had the ability to create this thing. So that, it's just so interesting.
It really is fascinating.
In one of the demonstrations that he got, actually, he said the craft ascended about 30 feet, and then it moved to left, then to right, and then rapidly ascended from there. Before initially lifting off the ground, the disc briefly gave off a corona discharge, a sound similar to that of high voltage electricity, and then it was completely silent, its bottom glowing blue.
Whoa.
Very interesting and very consistent with a lot of UFO sightings. And then, you know what that just made me think of? It made me think of like the strange space music from the Apollo guys.
Oh yeah,
because it sounds like
the whole moon, and they heard it.
They heard the sound, and you have the recording of it, but gave off like a high voltage electricity, like woo, like, you know, like when electricity, like something's being electrized at like a high rate, it almost has like that, like almost whoosh or like zzz, like kind of like a. He said that's what it kind of sounded like. And he said that the hissing and glowing are byproducts of the tremendous electromagnetic pulses generated from the craft. And the thing is completely circular. There's no 90-degree angles inside whatsoever. Everything was softly rounded, which I would assume is because this craft can literally warp space-time. And, you know, in order not to kill everybody on board, you got to be rounded. Like, yeah. But that's the thing too, is there's other UFO craft out there that are different shapes, and, you know, a bell shape or a triangle. There's all sorts of different types of craft, but I think most of the time the angles are rounded as well. So that's very interesting. So that's his experience with working on this potentially extraterrestrial flying saucer. Now, who was flying these saucers? Where are these saucers coming from? That is the question.
That is so interesting to think about too.
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I just want to know.
I wish he would have had his iPhone or something. Could have like recorded. No, they probably take that shit from you.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But there's some very interesting things that Bob talked about in later interviews about who could be the passengers, who could be flying these things, where could they have come from. But before I talk about that, I just want to thank our last sponsor today, Skillshare. Skillshare is the homies for sure, and they are an online learning community for creators with more than 25,000 classes in design, business, entrepreneurship, design, basically anything that has to do with being creative. Their premium membership gives you unlimited access to all those online classes, so you can join the classes and communities that are just right for you and your New Year's goals. Whether you want to fuel your curiosity, creativity, or even career, Skillshare is that perfect place to keep you learning and thriving in 2019. Yeah, I actually started watching the Adobe Premiere. I'm trying to learn Adobe Premiere because I'm trying to elevate the editing game a little bit. So there's some great classes on there.
Yeah.
For Adobe Premiere or any of the Adobe products like Illustrator and Photoshop. There's business stuff on there, stuff how to do, like help you build websites.
I was going to say, like, it's a great tool in general for small business owners because you can learn how to do so many things.
Marketing, all these different things from experts that in those particular fields. So what's great is that Skillshare is also super affordable. Its annual subscription is less than $10 a month. Join more than 7 million creators learning with Skillshare. The first 500 of our subscribers to use the link in the description will get a 2-month free trial. Again, the first 500 people sign up the link, which a lot of people do sign up for the link. So if you want to try this out for 2 months for free, all you got to do is go to the link in the description and start your free trial now. All right, let's go. So who was piloting the flying saucers? Apparently, while Bob was there, one day, Bob is taken into an office. I think if I remember correctly, it was kind of towards the beginning of when he started working at S4. But Bob says he was brought into an office and shown a ton of really heavy briefing documents and was told to study them. And according to Bob, these briefing documents he was given described how aliens, yes, aliens, from Zeta Reticuli.
That's, okay. I always thought it was Zeta Reticula. Is it Zeta Reticuli?
I think it's Reticuli, yeah. I think I've been pronouncing it wrong. I don't know. I've heard it Reticuli.
Huh.
I can't imagine it's Reticula. I think it's Reticuli. Who knows? But anyway, he described how these aliens, which the best way to describe them is your classic big-eyed gray aliens. We've all seen it. It's the alien logo. Literally. That's where we get that alien logo from, is from these supposed gray aliens, who, according to these documents, have been interacting with humanity for at least 10,000 years. Mic drop. Boom.
Mic drop. Boom.
Well, there it is, folks. So everything has been planned with the Greys, and the Greys have shaped humanity for 10,000 years. They have been involved.
That's insanity, if that's true.
So these are...
but it's like so many things point to that being true. Bizarre.
It gets even more interesting. So this is information in these briefing documents he's reading. And apparently the documents also had information regarding human history, alien biology, which he actually had. He said there was autopsy pictures of extraterrestrials in these documents that he looked at, as well as political events which supported the narrative that had been actively sown into this community since the early 1980s about the U.S. intelligence operatives in the form of the Majestic 12 documents, which this, like we mentioned, his secret clearance is called Majestic. So basically, according to the government, this doesn't exist. And a lot of people will tell you it's just a bunch of made up disinformation stuff. But basically, Operation Majestic 12 was a program that was created after the Roswell crash in 1947. And basically, the group of Majestic 12 was a bunch of basically military generals, government officials that all had orders from President Truman to investigate the Roswell crash and decide the best course of action to deal with the situation. The group put together a series of documents on its discoveries as a briefing for the incoming President Eisenhower. These documents supposedly detail the recovery of the craft, the extraterrestrial entities on board, as well as photographic evidence of the crash. So many, a lot of conspiracy theorists believe that this is true and this is, 100% real. This Majestic 12 group was real because we do have documents from it. What's interesting is that these documents, these Majestic 12 documents, can actually be found in the FBI vault, which I'm like, if they were fake, why would they put them there? People say this is all a ploy by the government, by the military, to basically disseminate misinformation and give us this narrative. Like they're giving us this narrative of Majestic 12, and all the documents that Bob read were fake and made up, and it's not real. And that it's just this big story, which is like, really? Really? But anyway, according to the documents also, the sport model, which was the flying saucer that Bob worked on, was actually given to the American government in the exchange program, quote unquote, in the early 1970s. The makers of the craft and providers of the fuel, the element 115 we've been talking about, were from the Zeta Reticuli star system. However, what we exchanged with them is we don't know. We don't know what we gave them exactly, if there was this big exchange.
That is so weird to think about.
So let me just explain the background of this exchange program a minute. So this is all information, again, coming from these Majestic 12 documents, which the government says are fake and disinformation, and others take it as like really what happened. Like this is real. And that's why we have these craft. But basically, in December 1952, the military made contact with an alien race referred to as Ebens, who lived on the planet Serpo in the Zeta Reticuli system. And communications transpired over the next 9 years. Very, very conspiratorial. But during this time, an exchange program between the inhabitants of Earth and Serpo was created. And actually, according to these documents that told us this information, 10 men and 2 women, 12 American astronauts, were basically sent to this planet.
That is the weirdest thing ever.
And this is where a lot of people are like, this is fucking bullshit. This is just a hoax. Like, this is getting crazy. Again, we don't know for sure that this is not real, because maybe it is. Like, maybe they have.
It's interesting to think about that.
Because if you think about it, if we know this technology, this extraterrestrial technology is real, and what Bob worked on was real, and there is this anti-gravity technology that can fly around space like it's nothing. Like, why couldn't they, after Roswell, got it back engineered and like created a way to either maybe they were able to communicate with the extraterrestrial entities they captured from Roswell, and they open up some type of negotiations with their home planet. But it's very interesting. But back to Bob. So Bob, according to Bob, the government documents he reviewed stated that the aliens, or extraterrestrial biological entities as they were quoted as, were from the 4th planet orbiting Zeta 2 Reticuli, the second star of a binary system in the constellation Reticulum, which is an absolutely real place. Like, you can look this up on a star map. But
that's so crazy.
And what's crazy is that this planet really does exist, and the hours, basically a day on it is 90 hours long, like in our hours. Isn't that wild?
So weird. It's this kind of stuff where I get really quiet on the podcast because it's so mind blowing. Especially if you really consider it to be real for a minute. Like, you're really like, God. Yeah. It's truly mind blowing to consider this stuff.
And again, people be like, well, how would they ever be able to keep all this secret? Like, and why? The biggest criticism to Bob talking about this part of it, what's interesting is that he really only gave all this details about what he read and stuff like once, way back right after it happened.
Really?
And now he won't even answer these questions or talk about these documents that he saw. Because I think he thinks that they were misinformation. Like, really? I think he thinks that they put him in this room like right off the bat to like give him all this information, because I think they knew that he would blow the whistle on stuff, and
that would
it would just
make him
help cover up what's really happening even more, because then there's this news story. And it's kind of true, though. And if you think about it, like, maybe this story or events is just complete, fakery, and it's not real.
Yeah.
And it's a really good story, and it makes sense and kind of goes along. And so it's interesting that he doesn't really talk about this now. But from what he said that he read, the reticulan aliens are essentially 3 to 4 feet tall and weigh 25 to 50 pounds. So they are like little kids, like little toddlers. Their bodies vaguely resemble a human toddler's torso. They have grayish skin and large heads with almond-shaped wrap-around eyes. They have a very slight nose, mouth, and ear positions and are hairless, which is really interesting that this description, if it is of real aliens and this is a real story, like, we've got it right then. We totally know what the Greys look like then. We totally know, like, what the most famous style of aliens is that we portray in movies and everything else, like. And that's what gives me that bit of skepticism of like, well, fuck, maybe it is just like made up. Maybe there is no aliens that actually look like these Greys, little hairless, alien children.
Yeah, it's so hard to know.
It's really hard to know.
Because like I totally could be set to put off the trail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. And that's why a lot of people like just wrote him off immediately. We're just like, guys, it's a hoax because this is fucking crazy. Like,
yeah.
And there's no evidence to back it up other than what Bob has said or what these documents are. And what's really weird to me is the fact that these Majestic 12 documents that contain all of this really juicy details about our contact with extraterrestrials and this Project Serpo exchange program are being available for download from their website. Like, why would they do that? I could understand, like, maybe if it was leaked by WikiLeaks or I had to go somewhere, but I can literally go to FBI.gov/vault and type in Majestic 12. Boom. Comes right up. You can read all this. So that's what makes me think, like, could this just be a big disinformation story to try to give us a false narrative of what's really going on? But
those definitely exist.
But what's weird is a lot of people that are pretty credible and have similar stories to Bob also can corroborate this. And a lot of popular ufologists, I'll be honest, like, believe this too.
Yeah.
So it's very hard. I'm like, fuck. What do we do? Because, I mean, if you look at Bob's story from a skeptic's perspective, why was Bob Lazar, who was supposedly employed strictly on a need-to-know basis as a physicist with one specific technical task, given information or given access to top-secret documentation, which had literally no bearing on that task?
Right.
That's like the biggest question. That's the big one that I wish he would have asked Bob in the film.
Yeah.
I would want to ask him too. I'd want to be like, this, like, I can believe his story about the saucer, but then when he starts talking about the aliens, and I think this is partly why he doesn't talk about this now, is because he knows it it hurts your credibility to then be like, oh yeah, I saw all these documents, alien pictures and everything else, but
because that's where people start being like, yeah.
But why? Why would you need to know that? If they wouldn't even tell you while you're working on the craft who was sitting in the seats, why would they then come take you to the room and show you all of this? Really,
I bet that really was a disinformation thing. That's the only thing that makes sense.
I think that got to give like the military, whoever he was working for, more credit that I think they realized, like, once Bob started working there, that Bob, I mean, they watch you. I mean, let's be real. Like, when you work there, it is not a good place to work. And according to Bob, it was like you're escorted everywhere by a guy with a machine gun. They yell at you. It's not great working conditions. You don't know what's going on around you. Can't ask questions. You literally just go in there and do the technical task at hand. So when Bob threw this whole other fucking thing about going into this room and seeing all this stuff, that's where people really get like, it's a little iffy.
So is that the same? Okay, and then he talks about like possibly having seen an alien in there too.
Well, he talks about
having glanced at like a room, but he doesn't think now that it was a real alien. He's like looking back on it as an older person now. I believe that it was probably like a dummy or some like people working on something for like sizing. They were taking measurements or something. Because
that was like one of the original sort of claims that he made was that one day he's being like escorted down a hallway inside S4, and he happened to like glance over into a room. They walked past at a window, and he said like he took like a split second look, and he thought he saw what looked like one of these little gray aliens in between two scientists like looking at something.
Yeah.
But then, he's since kind of like gone
He's
back
like,
on
I
that.
saw it for like
it was
tiny
it was like a millisecond. It was like 400 milliseconds.
I think you're right, though. He does think that anything you say about aliens starts to make you seem weird. Like,
and I think he totally realized that now. Yeah.
Like they'll believe like all this secretive technology and the government hiding things, but when you start talking about aliens, like people get weird.
They do, because people are like, oh, come on, like
it
no
sounds
way.
like fairy tale.
But another thing that's interesting is that, you know, it's really hard because part of Bob's story is like so believable, and it seems he does have actual knowledge of Area 51 and S4. And what was really interesting that was in this documentary is Bob has always talked about like part of the process of getting into S4 is you have to put your hand on this little almost like not a box, but
it's just like a rectangle.
It's like a reader,
with like
a hand reader.
Spikes coming off of it. They look like nails. They're like really long.
They're like long silver things.
Yeah.
I'll show a picture if you're watching, but they're like these long things you place your hand on, and it supposedly measures the length of your
bones,
finger
which is
bones.
Apparently unique to each person.
Yeah, and he said that, this is how I got into it every day.
And people were like, no.
People were like, it's bullshit. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
No, but in the documentary, I think it was George Knapp, the reporter, or maybe it was Jeremy, the filmmaker, that found it. I can't remember, but one of them are sitting down with Bob, and they produce a picture of this device that they found from somebody else, or it had been declassified or something later. Actually, no, it hadn't been declassified. I'm sorry.
But
this was a classified document, but it was a authentic document that had been corroborated by others that had worked there, and
it showed a picture of it.
Yeah, and it was exactly how Bob described it. And when you're watching him look at it, you're clearly seeing him recognize what's going on.
He like lights up.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I know what this is. So it's very interesting that he knew that as well. So when you look at everything all together here, it's a very interesting story. And one of the reasons why I think Bob is believable is that, you know, if you're going to pull a stunt like this in order for attention and to become famous, you know, like you'd expect to see somebody that is like wanting to, you know, is going to take advantage of that and like do things to try to further his, you know, his wealth or whatever you want to call it. But that's not Bob at all. Like after Bob gave his initial interviews, he kind of like, and after the whole, brothel thing and everything, he kind of like disappeared for a while and kind of like went into hiding in a way and just kind of disappeared from, you know, the spotlight where nobody heard from him for a long time. And I just wanted to play just a few seconds of this interview with George Knapp he did in 2014.
Be careful, it could get
no, I already checked. I already checked on this one. This is an actual
on
news.
The last one, I got copyrighted for playing that Marilyn Monroe clip of her singing. Someone claimed that.
It's crazy.
Unbelievable.
Right? Can't play anything except for an actual news clip. But this is just a short clip of, so you can hear Bob's voice if you had it before, and this is just him talking about like, you know, why would he doesn't want fame or anything like that, and there's no motive for him. So it's kind of interesting.
Story. Look, I am not out there giving UFO lectures, producing tapes. This is not a business of mine. I am trying to run a scientific business. And if I'm the UFO guy, it makes it really difficult. It's to my benefit that people don't believe the story.
These days, Lazar and his wife operate a scientific supply firm in Michigan. He's received media.
Yeah, so that's pretty convincing to me that he doesn't want the attention. He doesn't want people to believe him because it makes his life easier. Because you can imagine after he came forward and all this happened and he was scared for his life and
business, it's kind of rough to be in
and put through the ringer by the public and stuff.
Yeah,
you know, put through the ringer for not believing him and thinking he's a fraud and a hoaxer and stuff. Like how hard that would be on somebody like that. Mm-hmm. What were you gonna say?
Nothing.
No? Okay. So what does Bob do today? like you just heard, Bob owns his own scientific company called United Nuclear Scientific Equipment and Supplies, which basically sells a variety of materials, including radiation sensors, radioactive ores, non-radioactive elements such as pure silicone, powerful magnets, and other scientific equipment to a bunch of, as well as a bunch of lab chemicals. So he's clearly a smart guy, and anybody that says he's not a scientist, I just
laugh at. Stupid.
Seriously. Because he's absolutely,
brilliant.
he's absolutely a scientist, and he does have this company where he lives now. I think it's in Michigan, I want to say. But what's interesting is that they've definitely been watched, they've definitely been watched by authorities, by law enforcement, because it seems like they do get busted a lot. But anyways, in 2006, Lazar and his wife Joy were charged with violating the Federal Hazardous Substances Act for shipping restricted chemicals across state lines. And that actually stemmed from a 2003 raid on the United Nuclear's business offices where chemical sales records were examined. Now, what's interesting is that in this film, they happen to be recording when Bob gets raided by the FBI again. And this is real. And the FBI totally comes in and searches through his whole, his little, and it's just like a little business. Yeah. It's not even like this huge operation or anything.
No.
But he's raided for the same type of thing. They're looking for sales records for some client that they're investigating that bought possibly hazardous chemicals from him. But Bob's like, very suspicious. You could just call me on the phone and I'd give it to you, you know?
Yeah. Why have to raid?
I think this was probably one of the most interesting parts of the movie because it is very suspect because it's like, clearly the FBI is keeping tabs on him. And who knows who else, because he said a bunch of different agencies just showed up at his business. Yeah. He was like about to open the door for the day, and then all of a sudden he was like, boom, just bombarded by this huge raid.
Can you imagine? God, good morning.
But kind of everybody's suspicion about these raids stems from the fact that some of us out there believe that Bob, while he was working at S4, may have had the ability to essentially steal a piece of element 115.
Now that's interesting to think about. That he might have some of that shit. He got really weird about it too because they asked him, right?
He was like, very weird. You have to watch it to see
you can tell he knows something he has it or something.
And obviously he doesn't want to say anything on camera or anything. Yeah. Oh yeah, you would think he would just laugh it off, but he's like taking it very seriously. So some people believe that maybe the FBI is trying to catch Bob and catch the element 115 that he has. Because according to him, this stable version of this element can create this anti-gravity propulsion system.
Which would change everything.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about that for a sec? How this that's why the real story here is, and what Bob even said is not that maybe these craft are,
it's just that the technology could exist, because that would change, everything, cars, everything, the way that we have it would be different. So it's kind of like big information to keep secret.
Right. And if he has this, I mean, what is he doing with it?
I don't know. I mean, he seems like a ballsy dude, so.
He does, man. He's like not scared at all about it.
God, what if he like secretly was building his own spacecraft and he's like planning to just fucking peace out? He and his wife like hop on. He heads off to Zeta Reticula.
It's really interesting though, because Tom DeLonge talked about this element 115 quite a bit.
Yeah, he did.
And it makes me wonder that like, what if Bob is somehow working with Tom DeLonge's company or something? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's involved with them.
Well, they are. He's writing his biography or autobiography.
He's just publishing it though, because like part of
publishing it, whatever. But still, they're clearly working together in that aspect.
It's just so interesting because like part of Tom's company is like a media company. It's coming out with films and music or movies and books and things like that about the UFO subject. But the major part of it is this like aerospace think tank that's researching this type of technology right now. Like Tom DeLonge's even talked about technology that they have that could have the ability to time travel and all these different things. And that this element 115 is absolutely real, and the government absolutely had it and has this ability to create this craft that can, warp space-time and go light years away in a short amount of time, because you can literally just go straight there. You don't have to, you can completely avoid all of that, all of, normal space flight. What are you doing?
I'm taking a picture of the bunny.
Oh my God. Oh, she is kind of cute.
She looks really cute.
So yeah, that's kind of Bob's story in a nutshell. I mean, obviously there's probably a lot more details that are out there about what he experienced, but I mean, that's as much as that I've seen about what he actually did there. And obviously we don't know 100% if Bob actually worked at Area 51 or at S4.
But come on, he fucking did. It's annoying, honestly. He clearly did. Why would someone make that up? How would he have known about S4? How would he have known about Area 51? How would he have known about the hand scanner? How would he known about element 115? There's no way this shit just came to him and he got some a couple lucky guesses. Okay, yes, you can talk about his education. You can talk about
the education
whatever else,
is the
or the false stuff, or the
part.
Alien, kind of miscommunication that he had. But at the end of the day, he knows some shit, dude. You can't deny it. You can poke holes in him and just, criticize him as a human, but
yeah, and I mean, he reinforces your belief by just saying I really don't care what you whether or not you think I'm lying or not.
Yeah,
because I know it's true and it's real, and
I'm just trying to
he does have so much evidence and just people that can corroborate his story and George Knapp, the reporter from Las Vegas. I mean, he's been he was quoted as saying if I knew that Bob Lazar was lying, I wouldn't have. He's I wouldn't have wasted my time all these years on this story.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
And this is a reporter that's won awards and everything. He's very well respected. And he's I absolutely believe Bob's story, as far as the fact that he was back engineering this extraterrestrial spacecraft, and, whether or not, I think everybody's kind of most, unbelievable fact about his story is the whole alien thing, about seeing an alien. And I think partly a lot of it's been kind of twisted and kind of retold in different versions over the years about Bob seeing an alien. But I mean, he was asked in the documentary, Bob, did you see an alien at S4? And he was like, no, I didn't see.
He said probably not. He's I thought for a second that maybe, but
right through the window.
The more I think about it, no. So
yeah.
I mean, I think he's a legit dude. He just seems like someone's dad. He's so fucking mellow. There's no way he just made all this up and got all of it right.
And why? He's
yeah.
There's not people dumping buckets of money at my house or anything.
Yeah. And I mean, whether or not the whole Zeta Reticuli
those are just
meeting
documents that he read.
Right, and he doesn't know if they're real. So.
And again, yeah, exactly. He was just telling us what he read.
Right.
And I don't even know if he believes that the documents are real or not. Honestly, in my opinion, I think Bob probably thinks that those were there as disinformation to try
to throw him off,
or give him some fake story.
Him look foolish.
That if he was going to go and tell all to the world that at least it's this, government written version of it that fits their narrative. So I don't know. It's a big what if. And I mean, a lot of people are skeptical of it. People call him everything in the book and call him a liar and this and that. But I think there is far too much evidence to suggest that he at least worked at this secret base S4 in Area 51 and got a chance to work on these highly advanced extraterrestrial spacecraft. I mean, God. And honestly, what seems more believable to me is this craft was either craft that was crash landed and recovered somewhere in the US, or it was already man-made because it had already been back engineered years before.
I mean, that's possible too. But I think if they had back engineered something, would they really have made the little seats again?
Yeah, that's true. Why didn't they remake it for?
No. And I think the fact they brought him in to even look at it means that they wanted some more eyes on it to figure out what the fuck was going on with it.
True.
So
it's weird though that they would have let him see the seats in the craft.
Yeah, it is.
And maybe I don't know. That's what's so weird about it. And then give him the narrative of the grays or whatever that can literally fit in these seats and pilot the craft. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's really interesting. But I mean, as you can probably see, this is a huge story in the UFO community. It's very controversial
it's just
in the scientific
one more part
community.
that like fits in well with the rest of the narrative, though. It's just like it's stories like these that just like confirm what I already think. It's just so odd how many things overlap, and come on, there's a lot of truth here. So it's fascinating stuff. It really is.
Yeah,
I would love to have Bob Lazar on.
God,
Dreaming
cool.
big, but wouldn't that be cool?
I don't know.
Highly
Man.
doubt he'd ever do it, but it would be sweet.
I don't know. I want to talk to like other ufologists though about Bob and see what they think. It'd be interesting to hear like what I'm sure they might have talked about it in the past, but hear like what do they think of that film and like him coming for like how much they think is believable and what's not. But yeah, it's very interesting. We definitely want to know what you guys think about Bob's story. And if you're interested in learning a bit more or hearing more from Bob himself, definitely check out the documentary Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers by Jeremy Corbell. It's definitely a decent documentary to give you a good look at it. Yeah, it was like interesting.
A tad bit over dramatized at parts, but
I mean, it's a low budget film.
The main thing that's interesting is just hearing him talk, his interviews. So if anything, just watch it for Bob because he's got a lot of interesting shit to say. And I think if anything, just seeing for yourself his mannerisms and the way he is really important. So I for sure wouldn't let this be the last of your, research on Bob Lazar. Definitely check out the documentary for sure.
Yeah, and to just final conclusions, I think that for the most part, I think Bob's story is likely true, and I think he just said that, probably no. I'm just saying that he likely did work at these bases, and if anything, I think maybe at the time he might have embellished a little bit on some of the alien stuff or whatever, just because
maybe he added more details.
It was like a little like I don't know, maybe he's trying to spruce up the story a little bit. I don't know. I mean, who knows? It's just me guessing, but I think at the end, I think there's enough things to tie him to that place as well as Los Alamos, and the whole thing about his college education is very weird. So it'd be interesting to hear him answer like, "Where's your diploma?" or something like that. That's what I would ask him. Was like, "Where's your?" I don't know if anybody's heard him say that. Let us know. But that's really the only like big question mark.
He hasn't.
Because otherwise,
that is the big question mark because it is very odd. It is really odd. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But at the same time, we do know that these government agencies pull some bullshit. So
they do pull some bullshit, and it's totally
some bullshit. Definitely pull some bullshit.
Bullshit, man.
And on that note, we're going to be done with this bullshit for today.
Thank you guys for listening to today's episode.
Yes.
If you liked it,
episode
let
50.
us know.
Yes, by smashing the thumbs up, giving a comment, letting us know.
Please do. But we'll wrap it up here today, guys. Thanks for listening and joining us.
We have a crime episode coming next, just so you guys know.
Yes. Getting back into our detective
hats. Taking off the alien hats, putting back on the detective hats.
And diving into a very interesting one. So
very popular case. Oh, and the bunny is on the loose.
All right, guys. We will see you guys next week. Take care.